Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube, I want to remind you that this is my daily smoke break. I'm not promoting anything. I'm just smoking and talking to the audience. Today, I will be discussing the Olympics. Today, I will be discussing um, the fear of God. Today, I will be discussing Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, uh, quite a few things that are topics in the news that are not against your policy and guidelines. And as this video is flagged, as every other video has been flagged, I want to thank you for quickly um, fixing it like you always do. Because you guys always quickly hit the button and get it done. And I want to remind you, when you see something from this channel, ain't nothing going to be wrong with it. And I want to encourage you to track down the people who do the flagging and just remove all their accounts from YouTube. By now, because I've been talking about it, they probably got ghost accounts. But I can point you to the people. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I hope y'all doing well this morning. And everything is going okay with you. If you pay attention to what's been going on lately, which I'm pretty sure many of you have, and you've been paying attention to the news, then you realize that there's no fear of God anywhere, and you have a great opportunity to see people for who they are. For example, Kamala Harris just did her campaign speech and had Megan Thee Stallion on stage twerking at a campaign rally. If you are a person who has a friend and your friend comes to you and says, yeah, did you see how good it was? Kamala had Megan on stage and she was twerking. You need to reassess that friendship. I'm sorry, you need to reassess that friendship because what you're sitting here telling me is that the state of our nation should be defined by somebody shaking it behind, by perversion, by sexual morality on the stage. And that's what you view as politics. That's what's swaying your opinion. And that leads me back to what I was saying. See, the fear of the Lord is nowhere around. And I'm going to tell you this. When you're around people that don't fear God, let me define fear, because people be like, you're not supposed to fear the Lord. Fear of the Lord has multiple connotations. It has fear and trembling, because the Bible says kings should fear and tremble. All the earth should fear and tremble for the Lord. But also it has reference. It means awe. It means expectation. It means a lot across the board. I mean, the connotations of the word fear are very, very deep. And if you know them, then you understand what it means to fear them. Because the love is awesome, the attention is awesome, the chastisement is swift. So you'll understand what fear, but it's for an ungodly person, it's hard to understand when someone says you should fear the Lord. But the point I'm making is this. Absolutely, you don't see it anywhere. And it's a dangerous thing when it's combining into a spearhead for politics and for social decisions. For example, just yesterday, we had a boxing match in the Olympics where a man was boxing a woman, beat the lady into a concussion. I can see swimming, all right, you ain't got to lay hands on them. Racing, all right, you got. But when you get into combat sports, man, there's no way you should be doing it. But it happened. I'll tell you the great thing about all the stuff that's going on in front of everybody's face. The people who don't see have an opportunity to see. The people who won't see, they just won't see. And that's the great thing about what's going on. The people who just don't see the truth, they're getting the biggest opportunity on the planet to see truth. The people who won't see, they just won't see. Some people won't see because they turned over to wickedness. I was commenting somewhere about the Olympics, and I was like, yo, I'm not even watching it. I give 0 F's about it. And a lady came under me, and she was like, oh, you're a black man, understand that it's not that important. Then some more women, and it was all women, came under her. And it was like this attack. Like, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, then I start clicking the profiles, looking at the picture, black woman, 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 one white woman. And I said, boy, this is a shame. I don't go back and forth and comment with people, but I do comment in places to get a gauge to see what the audience is like and what's going on. And so when I hit the gauge, it's a direct reflection of what goes on in the black community. And it's a direct reflection of what you're going to see in the black community across the board. Somebody said, why are you talking about black community? I talk about communities, race, gender, diversity, all these things, because as it pertains to politics, they all matter. But one of the craziest things is, if you know, the mayor of Dallas, or if you didn't know, the mayor of Dallas just switched over from becoming a Democratic mayor to a Republican mayor. The mayor of Dallas is a black male. The mayor of Baltimore is a black male. He in the process of switching over from Democrat to Republican. He's switching because he's actually their best political candidate for presidency, but they ain't gonna run him for president because they're running Kamala. Because they can't have a strong black male figure in the Democratic Party, because that's too abrasive to what they've carved out as their central audience. As their voting block agenda, a strong black male is offensive to them. So there's no place in the party for him. So he's going to be leaving. And that's what you're going to notice, guys. There's going to be very little place in there is no place in the Democratic Party for straight men in general. Which is why you're going to see straight men, black, white, whatever you want to call them, that's not henpicked. That's not just about relationships where a woman run everything. You're going to see them do like this and go about their business. And it's already happening. But more significantly, when you see somebody like the mayor of Dallas do it and separate and go on about his business, that's substantial. It's super substantial, because now he opens the door for everybody else who's been thinking the same way to do the same thing. And one of the black mayors of one of the biggest cities in the nation says, nah, we ain't rocking with y'all. All of them gonna follow. You gotta understand, there's small towns with mayors that are that have 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 100,000. They're all gonna skedaddle. I say that to say, reading the tea leaves, with the exception of a lot of ballot stuffing, Democrats' goose is cooked at this point in time, completely. I mean, completely and totally cooked. Completely and totally cooked. When people like I'm not gonna say that. When people like Jim Carvell go on TV and they say, hey man, we losing. It's a problem. I'm sorry. I mean, that's Mr. Frank Underwood, literally Mr. Frank Underwood. When Frank go on TV and say we're losing, you know what I'm saying? We're losing. And so, it's wild. It's wild out here in these streets. Then when you really go and you scan the scope of, channels on YouTube and bounce. Sometimes I just sit there and I bounce. This channel, that, just bounce and just ride the wave of the algorithm, because it's kind of it's a wave like this, right? It's trying to give you what it believes you want, so it can make ad revenue, right? So as you bounce and ride the waves on your profile, it's kind of catered to what you watch. But when you go to another profile that you may have and you just bounce and ride the waves, now it's going to take you where it wants to take you, where the attention is flowing. So when I get on that and I just follow where the attention is flowing, and it brings me to places where people on the other side are trying to make arguments, and the arguments are so, I don't even understand how to verbalize these arguments. For example, one of the arguments was Donald Trump was not shot in the air with a bullet. He was hit with a piece of glass. And I'm looking at it, the argument, and from a political standpoint and from a verbal combative standpoint, the basic redirection is it's not about X, it's about Y, right? And so I'm looking at the base level stupidity of this redirection. So they're saying it's not about the fact that somebody tried to assassinate Donald Trump. It's about the fact that his ear was hit with glass. And that's what when you see that happening, every narrative change is that equation. It's not about X, it's about Y. So for example, it's not about the fact that I have 203 people in this chat. It's about the fact that nobody's talking in the chat because YouTube stopped them from talking. And then I still keep focusing on the fact that YouTube stopped them from talking, right? So let's get that straight. So we've moved from X to Y. But when you get to Y makes no sense. So you have to naturally go back to X. And in order for Y to make sense, in this case, it's not about the fact that the president was shot or there was an assassination attempt on the president. It's about that it wasn't a bullet that hit his ear, or it was a fragment of a bullet that hit his ear, or it was a piece of glass that hit his ear. When you get to that end result of the narrative and you stand around, you look around and you start spreading it to people, only the least intelligent people there are going to grab onto that narrative. I mean, it really, only the least intelligent people you can find are going to grab on to that. Anybody who has an ounce of critical thinking is going to say, hold on, bro. Wait. So we go from somebody taking a shot at the president to it being glass that hit his ear. So the fact that glass hit his ear, let's say it was glass, does that negate the fact that somebody was shooting, that you saw somebody shooting on national TV and you heard the shots? And see, the argument holds no weight. And so the talking point holds no water. And so when that talking point leaves around from an echo chamber and goes into the real world, that individual gets embarrassed. Can y'all hit the like button, man? There's 200 y'all and 54 people hit the like button. The individual who's carrying the talking point gets embarrassed. And see, normally when you create a narrative that you want to be strong, you consider the person that's going to carry the narrative so they can carry the weight of it and go and spread the word. But it's just like when you see you can clearly tell that Donna Brazil, people like Donna, people like Jim, like those people ain't nobody taking none of their advice. This is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It really is crazy. Nobody taking none of their advice. That's insane. And so I'm just surfing around, going through surfing around on the algorithm. I encourage you to do it. Go incognito mode on your phone, on your YouTube channel. Go incognito. Don't just turn on your YouTube and search, click on incognito, and just move around and see if I'm lying to you. You're gonna see all kind of crazy stuff. You'll see I got 207 people in my live stream, and you get into the live feeds, and there'll be people doing tarot cards with 10,000 people in it. But we can't even talk in the chat. So just move around. You'll see. Then you notice the Olympics came out and gave a non-apology apology. I did a video about that. We saw LeBron James morph into a lizard person live on camera, even though everybody loved LeBron. So LeBron's not a lizard. The thing that got me about the non-apology apology was anytime somebody says, if I've offended anyone, I'm sorry. It's not a real apology. I remember there was a guy who on YouTube talked trash about me for like a year. And then he came out and he said, well, if I've offended anyone, I'm sorry. I remember sitting there smoking my cigar, watching him apologize and give this blanket apology and saying, oh, so now it's if you've offended anyone. You're still not man enough to put my name on it after you said it. Now, normally when people give a blanket apology like that, that blanket apology is it's like a slippery ice. It's like an ice skate ring. You can slide around and say, okay, well, I apologize, and I was talking to you. Well, you didn't say my name, but I was talking to you. So that's the person giving themselves a way out of something that they did. But also, they can slide back into it at any point in time. So you got to be mindful when a person does that general public apology. They can slide any way they want to. And so the very next day, they tell a young lady who's a surfer or a tennis player, I forgot, maybe a surfer, that she couldn't acknowledge Jesus Christ and that Jesus was banned from the Olympics. The girl said, screw you, and does it anyway. But they said they weren't targeting anybody, and there was an apology. We weren't intending to offend anybody. But then you tell an athlete this. I'll say this to those athletes. At some point in time, you have to come to the conclusion that those people who are on that Olympic committee, bro, they're just wicked people. They're just wicked people. For example, they didn't want air conditions in the units for all the Olympic athletes. They didn't want them to have ACs. So nations had to bring air conditions in for their Olympic athletes. So imagine, just for example, let's take the Olympic basketball team. I mean, highly functioning old basketball athletes. Bring them all into a room, and there's no AC in the heat of the summer in Paris. But when you decide you're going to participate in that stuff, you become a part of the agenda. So they became a part of the agenda. But it wasn't, I'm not standing for this no AC stuff. Y'all better give me an AC so they get ACs. It's wild, man. But it all goes back to people not really fearing God anymore these days. Everything goes back to that. And then when their power went out, they covered it up. Not realizing, bro, you covering it up for the world to see don't matter. What you need to see is that you did that and your power went out. What you need to see is you did that, and then the water started raining all over the place and flooding everywhere. If the world never saw what happened, if it never hit like Twitter and Instagram, it's a problem for you and your nation. So it's one of them things, man. It's wild out here in these streets. And I'm gonna say this to the women that support this. Everything that is you is under assault. And it's amazing that it's women that come in agreement with everything that's them that's under assault. Everything that makes them, that God made them to be, has come under assault. It's wild. But then you come into agreement with it. Or nonchalantly kind of just like, whatever, it's wild stuff. It's super duper wild stuff. But nonetheless, I have a lot of work to do. I'm on a mission to 1 million. And I have a lot to do. Good day. I'll holler back at y'all.